That's okay.
They pay him back his bid amount or bid plus renovation costs?
No renovation costs. So sometimes I'll tell people don't work on it for those few times. Correct. No. But what happens is, okay, there are some things in a foreclosure that they have to do certain things in certain time frames. So sometimes you'll see if you have a super old case, the LP isn't, but the judge can void the LP because there's been no action. So he might say, you've let this open case sit for 2 years with no action, no service, no diligence is going on. You're not doing anything. And they could amend and say, we're going to dismiss your LP, and you'd have to file another one. It's rare, but we're seeing more of that because the judges are trying to clear the records. They're trying to clear them. So we'll see them say, you needed to do something. So usually they'll give them forewarning and ask them to pick up the process, start their service, start their diligent searches and the issues that are causing the delays. Okay, let's move on because we're not going to get to the tax deeds, and I know that's important. Karen has a question.
And somebody may have asked me, but I'm going to ask you. What do you do with money that's in the account that say you didn't win, you didn't get bid or anything like that?
You can close it out. You can get your money, yes. You go to the county. It takes 14 to 28 days, a lot of times to get your money back from the county. And so as we talk about problems and delays, which we will talk about if we get to it, that's the third part of our thing is delays. And the big issue with delays in foreclosures is your money is sitting in that account. If someone filed bankruptcy and stopped the sale that day, the sale happened, and they had filed bankruptcy an hour before, and then they come in the next day and say, hey, here's proof we had filed bankruptcy yesterday, the county actually goes and stops it. But they still got your money, and they can keep your money for 20 days, hold up your money. When they were having trouble with the courthouse was closed, they held people's money for 4 and 5 months. So sometimes that, I'll tell you, look, that person's filed bankruptcy and they didn't stop the sale. Bid if you want, but, when they figure it out, you're going to be money sitting there 20, 30 days waiting for the county to get it straight and give that money back to you. So, your money is important, and that's the goal, is that your money is protected. And that's always going to be our goal when we're doing searches or telling you anything that we find on the foreclosures. I know there's probably millions of more questions about foreclosures, but we're going to add more questions because now we're going to talk about we thought that foreclosures were complicated. Well, unfortunately, tax deed sales are even more complicated. And I've given you some flyers from the tax deed department. Now, the tax deed have just come online also. So you're going to see a lot of information in those flyers that refer to going to the auction, getting your little paddle and doing a tax deed auction in their office. That's a really new thing. They've actually gone to online bidding also. And it's actually in the same place on the site. Same drop down, same going to COJ, same going to the clerk. When you go to foreclosure auctions, kind of down at the bottom is a little thing that says county sites. You can click Duval County and a calendar will come up. Nothing's on there right now. They usually don't start, Doug, like a month before, 20 days before putting it in there? About 30 days. The auction is when you'll see that. So when an auction's, they're going to have them about every 3 months. So you couldn't go on there right now and see what is going to be in the tax sale. Got to go about 30 days before the sale and see that. So here are the things we're going to discuss with the tax deed. Now, we're going to touch on the tax certificates a little bit because that's how we get to a tax deed. So we will do that. So let's just go into a little bit on the tax certificates. There's some wonderful information in these flyers that I've given you. So let's just start the process. What is a tax certificate? Okay. What happens is every year, and it's coming up soon, on April 1st is when the tax bills basically had to be paid for 2012. They're paid in arrears, paid at the end. Tax bills are paid at the end of the year. In November, you got the 4% discount. December, you got a 3% discount, and so on. March right now is the regular amount. April 1st, now they drag a little bit, and it can take an extra month, and you can get into May before they'll start the sale. But what will happen is, people that don't pay their 2012 taxes, tax certificates will be sold for those taxes. And that's the way that the county gets their money. They need that money to run the city. So if, they have, $20 million in uncollected taxes, that could really hurt our budget. So what they do is they sell them. This is not selling the property, it is only selling that 2012 tax bill. And it's an investment, so people will buy them. A lot of times funds and different things will buy bulk tax certificates. They'll buy, 200-300 of them, but you can buy one if you wanted to. And what will happen is they'll have a little bit of an auction, and it actually works in reverse. Starts at you're bidding on the interest that you can earn. It'll start at 18% and actually bid down. Okay, but you're guaranteed a 5%. So if the bids went to 3 and 4%, you're still going to get your 5%. So when someone pays the tax, say the owner goes to pay their tax bill, June or July, they're going to actually pay a little bit of interest on top of that, and that's the person that bought that certificate earns that interest. So it's a way of investing. Pretty safe. So you'll see the interest bids down. That's why you're not going to get 18%. It's going to have bid down. I may bid 10. He may go and say, well, no, I'll take 9. So it actually is kind of reverse on the tax certificate on the interest. So the tax certificates have been sold, let's say, and it's going to happen within about a month. They'll start doing that for our 2012 tax bills. So the tax certificate is sold for 2012, and they've sold for year 2011 and prior. That's the first step in getting to a tax deed sale. Life of a tax certificate is 7 years. I actually asked John. I know a lot of people don't know John. That's my father who started all this, used to do a tax deed class, knows everything about tax deed. I called him today and I said, I have a question because I'm doing a class on tax deeds. What happens after the 7 years? He said, I don't know. I've never had one that went 7 years. Because after 7 years, the tax certificate is unenforceable. Someone can almost not have to pay their tax bill after 7 years. But it's unusual that they wouldn't go to sale by 7 years. Because what happens is if nobody buys the certificates, the county then is the certificate holder. They back it, and the county is the owner. So if they're really bad shaped property that nobody wants the certificates on, the county will end up with the certificate. And they will force the sale eventually to protect that 7 year statute. That's a bidding. Okay, so that's what's happened. The tax deeds, the tax certificates have been sold. Now, the certificate holder or the county, if they were the holder because they bought some certificates, are the only ones that can push those certificates to a sale. The tax certificate holder must wait 2 years from the sale, not 2 years from when the taxes were due, 2 years from the tax certificate sale. At that 2-year point, he can ask the county to sell the property as a tax deed. And the county can do that too if they are the owner of the tax deed. Okay, so they can force the sale of it, and that's what happens. Tax certificates holders will force the sale after that 2-year point. Okay, a couple little things, intricate things with tax deeds. Homestead property is a little different than regular tax deeds, and we'll go over that in a minute, and then we're going to go through the bid process. So these are the things we're going to talk about. Now, let me just kind of go through the process a little bit more with the tax certificate. The certificate holder decides they're going to force the sale. That certificate holder actually has to pay all of the other tax bills. So let's say 9, 10, and the 2011 certificate holder, well, they would need 2 years. So let's go 10. 8, 9 are due. The 2010 can start doing that in a month. He wants to force the sale. He actually has to pay the 8, the 9. He basically pays all of it up. Okay, so that becomes his out-of-pocket or her out-of-pocket. That is the bid. That is the tax deed amount. That's the bid. There'll be some costs, searches, and things like that. That is the actual starting amount of the tax deed bid. Does that make sense? Okay, so that's where they start the amount on the bid. The difference, and the only difference in that is the homestead property. If a property is homesteaded on the tax rolls, the bid has to be those costs plus half the assessed value. So sometimes you'll see one that will have, you know, the bid will be $50,000 and then all the other ones were $6,000. And you're going, why is that one so much? Their tax bills weren't any higher. It was homesteaded, and that's to protect owners in their homes, because they can actually apply for that overage. And I know this is confusing, sorry. Okay, so here's what happens with the tax deed. Same concept with the foreclosure. Now, the tax collector is above everybody. Okay, there doesn't matter order of recording, because it just doesn't. It can be 4 mortgages, could be owner, could be every single thing. They can enter them in to they have to serve them. They have to let those interested parties know that they're about to sell. The tax collector has to serve the first mortgage, the owner, the second mortgage, lien holders, judgment holders, even the IRS. Okay. And the IRS has that right to redeem. They have to let everybody know, okay? IRS is a little bit special, and code is special. That's not actually wiped out in a tax deed sale. Government things like mortgages to the government are also not wiped out. So government entities are not wiped out. It's the only thing that a tax deed sale is not going to wipe out. Okay, that are perfected on the property lien. So they have to serve everybody, just like they have to in a foreclosure. Okay, so we're going to talk about that more. We're going to talk about now. We really talked about you have to go look at the house on the foreclosures. And I told you that sometimes guys won't look if it dropped real quick. When we're talking about tax deed sales, I don't care if that price drops to $1. You better have looked at that house when it comes to a tax deed sale. And I'll tell you why in a few minutes, and we're going to go through that in a minute. I've made a whole subject about that. That's how important it is. Then we're going to talk about what happens after you get a tax deed. Because a tax deed does not, there's different things between ownership and possession. As far as a certificate of title like a foreclosure, that is a marketable title. If the title is clear, we're going to let you sell that house. That's not the same with the tax collector. Because they're superior, and because sometimes we question how wonderful our county service was, title companies are not going to write title insurance on tax deed sales. Things have to happen. 4 years has to pass, or you have to do a quiet title suit. There goes with Larry Bernard's a wonderful person to discuss with that. He's done many quiet title suits. So let's talk about a little bit about verifying the property. This is the issue with the tax deed sale. The biggest issue with the tax deed sale is they're pieces of property, you know, and if that makes any sense. It's a lot of times someone might have owned, you know, 4 lots, and that last lot had a lot of maybe wetlands on it. And so the person started developing it. He sold lot 1. He sold lot 2. Got to lot 3, couldn't really do anything with lot 3 because it had all the wetlands on it. So lot 3 just sat there, and there was tax bills, and he's like, I'm not paying the taxes, and they don't pay the taxes, and it goes to tax deed. So for 30 to 40% of what you'll see, there'll be 300 tax deed sales on one day that they're having a sale. 30 or 40% of it is junk like that. Weird cutouts, weird pieces of a property that got left out, weird easements on the property, all kinds of things. So I know that the process sounds maybe simpler than a foreclosure, but it's something to be even more careful of, because you really don't know what you're getting there. Okay, so you need to look at that. You need to go out there. I don't even care if you've looked at it on the property appraiser site and it looks okay. You need to drive there and make sure that you have access. It's not blocked in, because that's always a big issue, is that there's no access to the property. Make sure that it's not, a 10-foot strip, different things like that. So tax deeds, very important that you verify what you're getting on the tax deed. Very important. Okay, we don't actually obsess so much about the title search on the tax deeds, okay, because they really are above everybody. There's very few people that they're not wiping out, and you get it. You have to do something anyway to fix things. So rarely, I know you will call me and say, search them. I don't search them. I search them after. I will say, do your due diligence, look at it. That's the biggest issue. Look at it. Code issues. Look at the nuisance liens. That sometimes I'll have a lot of those kind of things. So those things I will tell you to look at. And then what we suggest is, if you get it that day or the next morning, then you want to call me and you say you want a full search, because really they need a full search. The county is not as good as the foreclosures. The foreclosures have a site. It's called CORE. You actually are able, and the reason I didn't mention it because all that does is make more questions, but CORE is the county's site, and you can actually go into CORE yourself and get a password as a public, and you can actually look at all the entries in the foreclosure case and see, did they serve? You can do all of those things, and that is why we can look at that so easily. I can't do that for the tax deed. They don't do that. They have a folder that you can go look at. They haven't gotten to that point. You can do that yourself. You can go looking through their folder, which I know you've...
Folder's online now.
Oh, okay. There you go. So that's a good thing. That's new. And the last search, see? Last one. So good. Now you can do that. But we have to look through that. We have to see, who did they serve? Did they serve who we think they did? But if they missed somebody, serving somebody, again, that's okay, because we've got to quiet the title anyway. We can get them in that quiet title suit, okay? And we can fix that in that quiet title suit. So we don't obsess as much about the search part of it. That doesn't mean they're not scary, and that does not mean that I'm saying that it's okay to buy the tax deeds. I'm just saying we don't worry as much about the title search. We worry more about what you're actually getting, code violations, nuisance liens, things like that. Now, I know Doug's gonna, when there's questions, his hand's gonna go right up, because he has had a situation recently with a tax deed where there was a mortgage. They did serve the mortgage company. They did everything they were supposed to do. And did the mortgage company battle it out? Yes, they did. They do that. So I'm not saying that that people aren't going to battle with you. Just because someone's entered doesn't mean they're not going to fight the fight. Okay? Just like the owner. They're going to still fight the fight. Do they have the right to do that? Yeah. Will they win? Probably not. But they have the right to take you to do that, and you've spent, $5,000-$6,000 on an attorney to prove that you are right on a tax deed. So before we go into more title issues, I know that was a little bit. Let's questions on tax deeds. Go. You don't even know what to ask, huh?
So, you got the tax deed done down, bid down, or you got it.
Okay, no. Okay, the certificate is different. The certificate part is just how it got to a tax deed. The certificate has nothing to do. The bidding part, I'm sorry, let's go through the bid part. You're right, we skipped it. I don't know why I don't have a screen with the bid part. I thought I did it. The tax deed, okay. If the people do not pay their taxes, correct.
I get them to pay my percentage for holding under for that couple of times.
Correct.
Sold.
Right. Okay. No one buys it. Okay. Yeah. Let's back up and go through the process again, because it's difficult. The tax certificate is different than the actual tax deed sale. The tax deed sale is held just like the foreclosures. It's on the website. Now, first the tax certificate sale is done. Most of you guys aren't going to get involved in that. That is an investor kind of, mutual, funds buy them. But someone might buy one particularly because they have a reason they want that one house and they want to force the sale. But for the most part, that is a, IRAs, SEP accounts, things like that. I'll buy those. Okay. I'm not saying nobody buys those, but it's more of an investment. That's done. That's separate from the tax deed sale. Then people don't pay the tax deed sale, and that certificate holder forces the sale. It says, county, we want you to sell this house. Then let's talk about what happens then. Then it becomes an open auction bid, just like the foreclosure bid is, and it goes online. And then that is a bidding where she bids 10, I bid 11, you bid 12. It has nothing to do with the interest. Then you're bidding to buy the house, and that's the actual sale. And that happens every 3 months. It goes on their site. You bid just the same process with the foreclosure, but now you're dealing with a tax collector. You have to go in, I think it's 5% also. I don't know why I didn't make a slide on that. I'm sorry. Okay, yes, so 5% or 200 if it's, doesn't have very much. And that it's the same process of bidding. Okay, I'm sorry I didn't clarify that.
And the opening bid would have to be the amount of tax.
Correct. So where the opening bid starts, how the number starts is that certificate holder that forced the sale paid up all the other certificate holders, and let's just say it came to $5,000 and some fees, so that's the opening bid. $5,300 becomes the opening bid. And then the person, you guys start the bid, just like online, just like we did. It starts at $5,300. I bid 54, she bids 55 till it stops. Then you become the tax deed owner, the owner of the property by tax deed. Okay, sorry about that.
So why would, I guess they're not paying their tax certificate. Why would they then start paying their
Well, they have no choice, because if they decide to keep their house, they don't want it to go to sale. You would be surprised that the investors are the worst about it. Let me just tell you, they are the worst about paying their taxes. They will let those houses have 3 and 4 years of taxes, and then they get notice that it's about to sell, and they go down and pay all the taxes. It ends up costing them $1,000 extra. And I complain to them all the time when we're refinancing or selling. I'll say, why have you done this? This is not smart money. Why have you let 3 years of taxes go? Oh, I could pay it when I sell it, or I could pay it when I refinance it. And they let those bills accumulate, and they paid $800-900 in interest on the certificates, and it's stupid, yes, but it happens nonstop.
Maybe it's cheaper than ours.
Oh, do you have some that have some tax bills? So yes, that happens, unfortunately.
Or if you buy one,
Yes, it is wiped out if they were served properly. If the mortgage company was entered in and served properly. And this is what we do, and I'll get to you next, Alex. That's why I don't search them right up front, because what you get to do is we search it the very next day. We want to do it as quick as we can. You don't touch it. You don't do anything to it. That's what I'm going to tell you. You let me do a full search. You let me look at, review, or whoever you want to use to review, make sure everybody was served properly. All the same service things apply, dead, owner, this, that. And then I'm going to say to you, I'm going to give you a report, and I'm going to say, okay, everybody was served. I feel good. You're good. Because if I told you the mortgage company wasn't served, I say they were not served right, they never got served, there's a problem, you can actually go down back to the county, and you can show them my search and say, look, you didn't serve this lender, and they will give you your $5,600 back. That's different than foreclosure. Okay, well, let me give you an example. Most of the time they do, and that's why it's difficult also on tax deed sales, because you will spin your wheels looking at 300, first trying to figure out what's crud, narrowing it down to maybe the 60 that are decent. Then you go through all this, and the tax collector waits till that night to take all the ones that got redeemed out. And so that morning you go in, you're ready, you're good, and the ones you want to bid on are gone because they redeemed them. But what happens is, let's take an example, like let's say Wells Fargo. I don't know if his was Wells Fargo, but Wells Fargo is the worst. They were served. Wells Fargo has maybe in our country 80 different offices between their branches, their corporate offices. So where did they get served? Did they get it to the right person? Did the right person that took that service get it to the right department to let them know that that property was not, the taxes were going to go? So that's what it is. It's more of an error. And that's what they'll fight you on. I think that was Doug. They fought on the fact that they probably weren't served right. They didn't get served to the right location.
They did get served.
Well, they have some issue. They can't just serve to the Wells Fargo sitting over here on Bay Meadows Road. Normally they will look and serve based on like their registration is what we would prefer. We really don't want, because I've actually had we have a lot of people that buy tax deeds.
They come back after that.
And they take you to court. Mm-hmm.
I bought an house.
Mm-hmm. You can probably get the money, you would probably get your money back from the county. You'd have to see your attorney would try to fight that.
The house is worth well over.
Mm-hmm.
But I assume that.
Of course, yes, you can. There was a time that rarely we saw them with mortgages on them when we did tax deeds, but now it's happening a lot more than it ever did. Because of the nature of where we're at. Some mortgage companies intentionally will let them go.
I acquired it, wanted to do the tax certificate.
Okay.
And I acquired it.
Mm-hmm.
Two questions. One, is there any money out of my pocket?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And secondly, if the interest rate was 9%, is that per annum or per period that I hold the certificate before?
No, it's annual. And what happens is you pay right then. So if the tax amount, like if the tax bill was let's say you bid on one and the tax bill was $1,200, you give the county the $1,200 because that's their way of getting their money. They have to get that money because if they let that money sit, then we can't, fund the police force. We can't fund. So they've got to get that money. Okay. Question. I saw another question over here. Go ahead. Right, like let's say there was a mortgage that then you found the mortgage company was going to foreclose anyway, even though they were served, and you were the tax deed holder, and you guys you take them to court, you challenge, you object to the foreclosure basically, and you hire an attorney. There's a huge amount of expenses, so sometimes you may not want to do it. Like I may tell you, look, there's a more and you can ask Doug what he thinks. I'm sorry if I'm letting your stuff out here, but if he'd have known that ahead, would he have still maybe gone with it? You don't know, because if you think that they're going to fight you, it could take $5,000-$6,000 in attorney's fees to fight it. So, you come to me and we do the search and we say the first was served, we feel they were served, we feel it's okay, but we can't guarantee that they're not going to fight you and have you in court, and you're going to have to pay an attorney $5,000 to defend your position, because if you even can get the county after, say you lost, and you can get the county to say you didn't serve right, whatever the reason that you lost, like the judge said the service was wrong, then you go to the tax collector and you say, okay, the judge just said your service was wrong, so I want my money back. They give you your money back. They're not giving you any of your attorney's fees back. They're giving you that, if you can get them to do that. And then what they do is they just show the taxes due again, and the bank pays the taxes. So that's why they're willing to give you your money back, because then they just give you your money back. Those taxes become outstanding again. The mortgage company won, so now they're going to protect their lien because they know about it, and they're going to pay the taxes. So that's why the county isn't a big deal for them to give you your money back, but they're not giving you all of the expenses involved.
I was just going to say, Lord, you're probably involved in it, cleaner and easier. Tax deeds are something, you go out and you buy a $30,000-$40,000 house, you invest $6,000 in it, and the chances are 95% you're gonna make money. There's a 5% chance you may not make anything and have legal fees and that.
Some people love the tax deeds, though. They really do. You know, they do. But it's different. There's really a difference, and it's hard to explain because it's a feeling, but there's a difference in the kind of properties, I think, sometimes that you see. The foreclosures, you see a little more, how do I put it, mainstream, normal properties. The taxes, you see maybe things that are a little more distressed, maybe not in the best of area, but maybe some great rental potential. So, and I'm not saying that the two don't cross over. Of course they do, but it's a different kind of product on those kind of situations. Okay? Mm-hmm. 5%. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Right, you're guaranteed. By the county guarantees you'll get your 5%. Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, they lump. You get a big, no, it's 5%. You get a good amount. They put it right on top of the certificate. So that certificate amount, you'll get a good chunk of interest on it. So.
Guaranteed that any
right.
property that has a mortgage on it,
mm-hmm.
been down by one of your largest,
right.
4%. Everybody that'll be paid off.
Right. Right. So you'll see funds, you know, like, you know what you see a lot buying them are people's retirement funds, because it's a safe. They feel it's a safe. They won't go for the really horrible ones. They may buy, like Doug's saying, they may buy, 200 of the decent, the homesteads there, or a pretty decent house, and they'll bid low down on the rate because it's a safe portfolio. It's something that, just like an IRA, it's a little bit safer use of the money. If you're but your interest is less. Okay, so everybody feel good?
I think it's worth mentioning the sign.
Yes.
Okay, because that's important. And if it's doesn't sell, that's now tax bill.
Right.
Somebody else's head.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, I think what we touched on a little bit with kind of the caliber of what you get. Okay, the tax deed sale. Now we're seeing that cross a little bit now with the people are having a lot harder time. So you'll see some that are not, the good ones that are not paying their taxes, but it's very rare. What we see more often is people aren't paying them because they're really, a horrible area. They're distressed. They're just, horrible. The title is so bad, you can't get clear title. You've got to go through this quiet title, and it costs thousands of dollars because in the quiet title suit, they have to serve everybody in this quiet title suit. So they re-serve, basically. Basically, we say title companies want the attorney to re-serve everybody because we don't trust the county, okay? And we do a search and we find, and I get, whenever there's a tax deed sale, the week before I start getting a ton of calls from people that are gone to that someone's trying to sell them the house because they're about to lose it for taxes, and they're trying to sell it to an investor, and the investor's like, this great deal, I'm going to get it for him, I'll pay the taxes, I'm only going to give him $500, and I'm going to buy this property. 99% of the time they can't because it is so bad. The title is so bad, and that's why, because they don't have good title. They've not been able to do anything with it, so they just said, we're not going to pay the taxes. We had one that had so many title problems. The quiet title suit could have probably, by the time they served everybody, because now the service, you got to be careful, the service is expensive. The fees have gone up. So if they have 10 different people they have to serve, it's like 10 times $300. And that's just the service. You haven't even paid the attorney fee. I mean, these quiet title suits can get extremely expensive. Extremely expensive. So tax deeds are more tricky in the fact of what the product that you're getting, I should say. Okay, does that make sense about that? So we really want to be careful with that.
Laura, I would say, possession means something.
Mm-hmm.
That was a mark on not to buy. And I thought I would buy it anyway. And I would offer like $16,000. Again, I got it for $6,000. Well, and they have terrible title. But I'm only putting $10,000 in fixing, and I get $700 a month.
Mm-hmm.
So in what? About 24 to 30 months, I'm now positive. If somebody came after me, they couldn't give me within 30 months.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a situation where I don't think anybody will ever come back. Well, I have possession for it for the rest of my life. Well, what's that worth?
Mm-hmm.
I think that's what some of the tax deed people look for, is to get in something.
Right. Sometimes that's true. They're not going to resell it. They're not going to retail it. Not as much as you see with the foreclosure auctions. They're not going to refinance it. They're not going to, sell it. They're not going to retail it because they're a little more tricky. The product you get is different. You may not want to spend thousands and thousands. I mean, you may have bought the property for $8,000. Who wants to spend clearing the title? And a big point that's being made on over here is, we didn't even take time to really talk about it, is the code violations. Some of them can have a lot of code violations. They can be in really bad shape. There's some houses that I've heard investors say, you can't even give it to me. Don't even give that house to me, okay? Because you're giving me code violations, terrible area, tax bills. You only paid you could pay $5,000, or you could get it for free. You still have to pay. The tax collector doesn't put free. They're still probably saying it's worth $40,000 and wanting $800 a year, mowing it, upkeep. And the code violations can be atrocious on those, and on the tax deeds. Code violations are horrible with the tax deed. Mm-hmm. Yes, you can do that. Then you do not have to quiet the title, right? If everybody was served properly. I will have to say that as a little note. Let's say that they did not serve one of the interests. 4 years doesn't help that. If we did a search and we felt that they served all the people, then if the 4 years goes by. Okay, now let me just add one little more feature about the tax deeds. The county, you'll see that some just don't get bought because they are so atrocious. They sit in a lands available with the county, and you can actually go buy those, but they're really never anything that great, but they are there. You could go look at it and see what they had. This is going to just kind of tie it all together. Even though this is a whole different subject, it really is going to talk about the foreclosures and the tax details. And now we're just going to say any closings, okay, or any properties that you buy, title problems. So let's focus on that. I know, and we're going to relate it to we've already kind of started relating back each time, okay? And we're just going to do a few minutes of it, and then we're going to be done. But here's a lot of title problems. I know, let me use the pointer. We've talked about this one a lot, the code violations. This is a really big problem right now, okay? So you can call a tax deed, foreclosure, all of that. You can call them a day or two before. Oh, are they? They are, because they're getting tired of everybody calling. To get a printout, what are they asking? $5, $10. What he's saying is that you can, if you call them, they won't just tell you anymore over the phone. Right, unless now for code enforcement at 255-7000, their office is right there in the Florida Theater Building, I think the 7th floor. What he's saying is that they won't just tell you anymore. You actually have to go down there, get a printout, and pay $10 for that printout. They'll give what they do for us. They're not making us pay because we're title companies, but we have to send them an email and we can't get it instantly. It usually takes about 48 hours for them to send me back an email. So that's what they've been doing. Right. That's what we've been, but it takes 2 and 3 days to get information from them, and they don't charge for it because I'm not asking for the printout. They'll just email me back and tell me that there's no active cases and things like that because they know that we're the title company. So this is a real scary thing, especially with the tax deeds. Okay. REO properties, just generally, a lot of title problems, a lot of things to think about with the REO properties. Auctions, now again, just foreclosure. It's almost like as bad as a quitclaim deed, a certificate of title, because there's nobody giving you any guarantee. So you get that certificate of title. It's still as is conditioning. That doesn't mean it wasn't a second. Just because they gave you a certificate of title doesn't mean that it was an association that you bought and there was no other mortgages. Okay? That's got to be hopefully clear. If anything isn't clear, that's clear. That you're not getting any guarantees when you're buying any of these products here.
Well, that same property, I just said I bought that. Felt really sorry for people I bought it from. They paid like $25,000 or $30,000.
They got a quitclaim deed.
And it was from an auction.
Mm-hmm.
Company that actually went out of business. They got a quitclaim deed, which doesn't mean anything about whatever interest that auction company owns, which could be none.
Yeah, so
And all these title problems, when I asked them, do you have title insurance? They said, oh yeah, remember they were going to send it. Oh, I said, they don't have it.
We tracked it down. We called them. We called the company that prepared the deed, and they told us there was no title insurance.
I didn't know that because it's auction company just ran it for you. Here's your paperwork. You're happy owner of this house. They lost about $20,000 on that deal.
Yeah, so a big thing out there right now that's starting up is the different auction sites because the banks have a lot of inventory. So they're starting to sell, not list them as in the MLS and putting them on different auction websites. And when they do that, they're always giving quitclaim deeds. They're not even giving their special warranty deed anymore when they're doing that. A quitclaim deed is a deed that's given to you. It is a conveyance because they actually sign it. So they are deeding to you, but they're deeding it to you with no guarantees that the title is clear. There's not a title problem. Everybody was served. There's no guarantees when they give you that quitclaim deed. Yeah, usually a bank has bought it, foreclosed on it, and they're the owner, and then they put them on their auction sites because maybe they have a high inventory and they don't want to get the realtor, do all of that, so they'll just start auctioning, and we're seeing that now. So, and everybody's probably started to see that. So you want to be real careful with these. Same theory. We need to do a search. We need to check with the codes. We need to verify all those same things tie back to every one of these products. I know you were saying, what do I do? Same thing you're going to do with any property. Same thing I'm going to tell you on anything you're buying. REO, auction, quitclaim, tax deed, foreclosure. Start with the property appraiser. Start working through them and looking at everything you can look at. Okay? Yeah. Yeah, and it makes you nervous. That started out, a lot of them had problems, but now they're just doing it because their inventory is so high. But that can be something to think about. And of course, probates and bankruptcy situations, are always features that people talk about. So basically that's it, because I know there's more questions. So we're done. We're going to go with some questions.
We're buying that one on Pearl Street. And last buying it, I think, from a hedge fund. And the hedge fund is just going to sell the mortgage. But we put in our contract that we won't do the deal unless the third person, which is a quick thing. So, you know, when you buy deals like that, your title search firm
Mhm.
is telling us what we have to put in the contract to be able to get title.
Mhm.
So, you know, if you're thinking of doing that kind of a deal, get a good title person involved early. So even before you write the contract, if you think it's a deal that you're definitely going to do.
Okay. Question?
It's not going to be right at the redemption.
Mhm.
Let's see, owner,
Mm-mm. Mm-mm. Nope. The only redemptions that, and people think that they do, they used to. Years ago, many years ago, owner did have a certain time frame right to redeem, pay the money basically, for in that 10-day window. That was always between that certificate of sale and certificate of title. They took that away many years ago. So they don't have the right to come in with the money. This now, let's stay with foreclosures. And but they have what it is more of something's wrong. Like they have the right to say, I didn't get served, I didn't do, I did pay the money, or they have the right to object because of a reason, but not just saying, okay, I waited so long, now here's my $67,100 3 days later. No. Okay. Now, let's go to our tax deeds with this right, okay? There's a tiny little loophole with tax deeds that the owner does have a little bit of a right to pay the taxes all the way on the day they're selling, and even into, sometimes the tax collector will let them go a day or two after the sale, I think all the way even to when the deed's recorded. So that's a small little loophole in the statute on a tax deed sale. So a lot of times we'll say don't do anything on a tax deed sale till your tax deed's recorded, because they do, and that's because they've taken something from somebody, and so if that person, because the tax collector is not in the business of wanting to take property, they just want their taxes so they can run the county. So they do like if I went in 2 days later and they had not recorded the tax deed, I can get them to take my money. And then you're going to get your money back. But so we'll really advise you on a tax deed not to do anything to the house until your tax deed's recorded.
And they're doing it at the courthouse, and he works on it every day.
Yeah.
Now, this last month, it took us 3 weeks.
And that's a problem. Because of that statute, that people don't realize that situation. And so you'll have guys that buy a lot, they'll get real mad and they'll be like, you need to record my deed. And the reason they're so upset and want that deed recorded is because their tax deed recorded is because that owner can come back and pay during that time frame. Okay? Right. So don't touch it, don't do anything to it. That's on a tax deed. Okay, does that help? Because I know that was a big question for you. 1 second, back here.
I had a recent situation where the issues related to environmental issues
Those are sheriff's deeds, and they can be seized in certain situations, and those are even more complicated. And yes, we do see that. I actually have one right now where there's a sheriff's deed. It's a really sad situation. The parents let their teenager have a party in their house and let them drink, and a teenager left the house and died in a car wreck. And they have taken their homes by sheriff's deed from them. But yes, but like whatever reasons that that's called a sheriff's deed when they take it for whatever reasons, or the federal, take it. They were stealing, they were mortgage fraud, for example. They acquired these homes through fraud. Then you'll get a deed from the federal government. And those are same things like sheriff's deeds, or you'll have a deed directly out of the federal government.
Typically those show up in
They're very rare. Oh, well, yeah, of course, we'll see them, but they're very rare. I mean, of course, in my 20 years, I've seen different situations of them, but they're very rare.
I'm saying like you say somebody
Mm-hmm.
About that property,
Mm-hmm.
maybe buy, maybe promote, or environmental.
Well, yeah, like yeah, for like meth and things like that, yeah, where you'd have to clean it up. But you have that with anything. I mean, mold is an issue, and there's no way to know those things unless something's recorded that jumps out at us. Like the county's recording now on their property appraiser site about the ash areas that had were near ash sites, and that's being disclosed, so we can see that. But if we don't know that it was a meth lab, or we don't know that it was infested with mold, because that could be with an REO, that could be with any property. So those kind of things are hard to do, and that's with anything, with any property you buy, not just tax deeds or foreclosures.
Or are there any
The only thing with and staying focused with what we're talking about tonight, because that's a generalized question, but staying focused with that, when there's probates and it's tax deeds or foreclosures, the service has to be done properly. There's ad litems, there's different things that have to be done right for those probates and owners to get served right. There's processes involved.
I have a question on service, like
Mhm.
if you do an eviction, if you can't serve that person in person,
Mm-hmm.
you're not gonna get a monetary judgment. It couldn't be that way in foreclosures. A lot of people abandon property.
Right. They have a process. They have to do a diligent search. They have to do the steps of that they've searched and where they've searched. And then once they do that, then they have to publish and that they've done their diligent search. And then that they can go on with their foreclosure without an actual signature of service. So that, again, is something that has to be looked at. And that's where it starts to get hard to do your own title searches. Because how are you going to know to look for that? Okay.
The lawyers in Florida,
Well, we can't talk about that. I'm only licensed in Florida. Yes, I'm only licensed in the state of Florida, so.
and this is back in code enforcement.
Mm-hmm.
There was a time, I remember we did this, we actually were fairly successful with it, when they were trying to get pretty good.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
They were very lenient in letting us work,
They were.
but we were the same thing.
They had an amnesty program they actually ran where they were free for a time frame.
We were able to purchase property for a lesser amount because they had a whole bunch of code enforcement issues, and guys were willing to work and clean them up.
Right.
To get them a better deal. Is that still
Yeah, they do have it still. It's $1,500, so it's a little more expensive. They had a free time, the amnesty. Then they were about $750. Now they're about $1,500.
There's a name for that.
Oh, for like clean it up, green it up, and yeah, well, they had an amnesty, and then they, like I said, went to $750. Now they're at about $1,500. But it has to be a third party. You can't make that deal while the person that owns it still owns it.
Created the problem.
Right, you can't be but if you are a third party that gets the house and owns it, then you can request that stipulation agreement. It's a You can ask for that stipulation agreement that you agree to enter in with the city. You give them $1,500, you sign it, they sign it. You have 1 year to bring it up to the standards that they want it.
And this is knowledge that you learn, and one thing about like our class tonight, we had a Saturday on wholesale. Remember me telling everybody that to be a wholesaler, you had to know something about everything? And you really do. All this knowledge you need, because you may see a house that has $20,000 in code violation. You're negotiating with that seller, you're not gonna walk up and say, oh, I can wipe all that out for $1,500.
But you can only wipe it out after you buy it. So you can't get title insurance to buy it.
You have that knowledge, so you're in a whole lot better position. You can after you own it, but you can't until you're the owner.
Right.
What if that law changed?
Yeah, we don't know. Right. We don't know what they're going to do.
There is that chance, because they won't give you an agreement until you own the house, and what you want to do is buy it and have the owner carry back a mortgage a short term, 30 days, whatever, go down, get the stipulation agreement and pay the mortgage.
You can sometimes get with them a little bit and try to get it ahead if they're REOs and things.
Reference, we can call and we pay a fee to find out what code violations are.
Mm-hmm.
Is there any way to sort of what houses have code violations?
No, they don't record. I mean, they do record the original, the first, that they're going to start leaning it and putting violations. But the original first, stuff that they put out, they don't record.
A friend and then partner.
Right. There's nothing. Yeah. Now
Nothing illegal about them giving you that information. You have got them to take.
yeah, there's no way to know.
Yeah.
No.
Get the most guys in the code.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't done that in a while. Going to COJ, property pleasure, they go into tax collector site, if there code violation, they usually listen to the tax collector.
Well, the nuisance liens are, but not the condemning and stuff. Yeah. So that may not be in there. Yeah.
We're gonna have to wrap it up. You wanna get, one more question?
Yep. Anybody?
Okay, that's over.
I have some cards if anybody wants any, but it's there. Thank you.